I wanted to go to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and after about 3 years in Chicago, said, well, do it. So three of us got together and we share the ride or something like that business, and we got in a car and we ended up in New York City and checked into a hotel and looked around, and we found a rooming house and moved in there, and we had a hot plate. But that was where I learned how to cook. We had cabbage because that was good for you, and we had beans and salt pork and garlic. And so we we lived on that for quite a while. Very healthy diet.
Would we know the names of the other two people that you came to New York with?
No, they're both dead, and they one of them, well, both of them went into the army, and they just disappeared.
I'm wondering how, now here you are in New York in the early 30s and a very young man and trying to break into, what, the theater, radio, both of them?
Theater.
How did you go about looking for and getting those first jobs?
Read the paper. I was doing something, what we call it, making the rounds to all the producers and agents, because I didn't have an agent then. Only important featured stars had agents, and we'd make the rounds. And I made the rounds, and George Abbott was producing a play by a film writer who wanted to also to direct, Samson Raphaelson, who was an important film writer. And I auditioned, and I later learned that they were having a hell of a time trying to cast this part. It was a small part. It was a part described as a 72-year-old second-class seaman. And I was in my 30s at the time, but I was used to doing makeup. I'd make myself look old and got a wig, and I made a splash with that first part, which was fortunate. So it gave me my start.
Did you find it difficult to get auditions? You said you saw them in the newspapers. Was it the regular daily newspapers? Or
Yeah.
There weren't trade papers that you would find out?
No, we didn't have trade papers then. And the theater columns would always say, you know, Jed Harris is going to do blah, 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 or Herman Shumlin's going to do blah, blah, blah. And you'd go around and say, may I please speak to, well, blah, 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 and wait around. And they'd say, well, there's nothing today. And say, well, you got used to that. Nothing today. Thank you for calling. And then after you get known, then you get an agent, and an agent does the rounds for you.
You make your first years in New York sound relatively easy now.
No, cabbage and beans, and clothing was very expensive. You see, people don't understand that you could live on $25 a week. So what, you can't even buy a meal for that today. But that's all before inflation. We're trillions of dollars in debt, and that just diminishes your dollar and my dollar. And so that's why coffee costs $1.25 a cup today, when they used to have the bottomless cup for a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
You go in and have all the coffee you could drink.